Do some fans still say this? In this day and age? Like, I don't really understand how fans' mindsets are broadened to that extent, but having such derogatory views? It is wild. Hey guys, and welcome back to this tiny corner of the internet. Shall we dive into some absolutely horrendously stupid things that stans say? You're watching It's Tale Time. You can't deny that as a K-pop stan, some of us have probably heard the weirdest stuff being said by K-pop stans online. It is really not a myth anymore, and I can vouch for the fact that people have actually gone on the internet to say these, and as much as some of these are stupid enough to evoke a good laugh, some of these will make you go, seriously, they thought it would be a good idea to say that? Without further ado, here's some absolute whack-ass stuff some K-pop stans have said. It's not EDM, it's just pure noise. This is probably one of my worst irks when it comes to K-pop stans online. Whenever I see something like this being said about literally any particularly EDM heavy track, it gives me the impression that OP doesn't actually know what either noise or EDM means. But on a more serious note, it's really frustrating. Like, I don't give a flying frogfish that EDM isn't your cup of tea, or you just don't prefer songs from that genre. Why would you discredit an artist and all the people who worked on the song just because you don't like it or understand the musicality behind it? If you're a K-pop stan, you ideally should adopt the mindset of understanding how evolution in sound comes about and just generally to let it be if you don't like it. Also, redefining this again, EDM is a technical term for a quote-unquote noisy song, and hence this literally doesn't make sense as a sentence, but the noise music discourse for another time. All boy group or girl group music sounds the same. I'm afraid that if you're one of the people who actually think this or have said this, you're only kidding yourself by saying this. Hearing this being said actually makes me question, like my EDM point, if people actually understand how music works. Both boy groups and girl groups have a distinct diversity not only within their own respective discographies, but throughout K-pop holistically. This is actually funny because according to the logic in this statement, I'd be seen dancing to say Maze in the Mirror by TXT the same way I'd be dancing to say Mirror by Stray Kids? If I ever had someone say this directly to me, I think I'd actually burst out laughing because of how bizarre that sounds. Blank bigger than K-pop. For this one, I think everyone knows who I'm targeting. ARMYs, I'm looking you right in the eye for this one. I don't need to be a native English speaker to realize that this actually makes no sense. I know you might be talking about achievements when saying a group or an idol is quote-unquote bigger than K-pop, but all in common sense, I don't get how a single group or idol can be bigger than an industry that harbors more than 800 or so K-pop idols, especially when that group or idol is part of the industry. It's honestly a personal traumatic flashback for me because I remember getting ratioed by ARMYs on Twitter for quoting them when they said something along the lines of Taehyung is bigger than K-pop. No, I'm not invalidating BTS or Taehyung's success and achievements, but is it right to blatantly step on every K-pop idol ever just to pedestalize someone in particular? I'll leave that for you to think about. Blank is a dozen of blank group. Okay, not going to lie, I kind of feel criminal for saying this sometimes, and in some cases, I think it's fine to claim a member of a group as a dozen. What is a dozen? A member of a group or just an idol in general who, according to people, doesn't dance, doesn't sing, and doesn't add any purpose towards anything, and in most cases, it is thrown around quite ruthlessly and comes off as immensely rude, especially when said in a non-ironic manner. When I say a member is a dozen of the group, I usually mean it in a very light-hearted, humorous manner, and I'd mean that that member is quite underappreciated and mostly isolated, which is seen distinctly when looking at line distributions or just the discrepancy of attention when compared with the other members in a group. If you say anything towards blank group, you hate them and or are attacking them. I'm beaten when it comes to this. Like, I will willfully surrender if it means avoiding confronting anyone who says anything along the lines of this. With the obvious exception of baseless slander, K-pop stans are and should be allowed to simply have an opinion on a group, whether it be a specific comeback or just an aspect of them in general, without it being classed as hate of any sort. This statement usually comes from fans who are overly defensive about their favorite groups to the point that they are blinded to the fact that not everyone might have the same views about the group as them. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves within K-pop stans. Let's normalize K-pop stans being able to speak freely about their opinions in social media platforms as long as it's not unprovoked toxicity. Can your K-pop boy blank? I don't have a particular problem with this, and I get some fans like to showcase their favorite idols by highlighting their talents, saying things like, can your K-pop boy dance while doing a 4-part high note, and etc. But the main problem arises when it starts to get overused on social media platforms, especially with Twitter stans. Stans like to drag this into fan wars and use it as a form to drag other groups or idols down whilst in a fan war, and I for one do not think that's okay. Can your K-pop boy do this? No. Can your K-pop boy do this? No one cares. I know I don't care. To the people who apparently care, is this fun? I know I just have a massive irk with fan wars in general, and some of you might think I'm making a massive deal out of this, but just honestly, why do people act like they can just invalidate an idol's talents and abilities to win, or rather get the feeling of winning, a mere fan war? They're idols. They signed up to be publicly criticized for their looks. Do some fans still say this? In this day and age? Like, I don't really understand how fans' mindsets are broadened to that extent, but having such derogatory views? It is wild. They're idols? Yes. But did they sign up to be publicly criticized for their looks? Absolutely not. You brought it on yourselves to criticize them for their looks. Hence the opinions that go, blank idol is ugly, or blank idol got plastic surgery, and on that point, assuming every idol got plastic surgery and acting like that is derogatory in itself, all of these are objectively invalid, and I will tell you this right now. They're idols for a reason and were obviously thought to be pretty good visuals in the first place to even become trainees. I can almost hear some fans' counter-arguments to this. But beauty is subjective, yes it is. So if you have anything to say about an idol's looks, you're obliged to keep it to yourself, because there will be people who don't agree and would rather not hear that come out of your mouth. If their group's name is as bad as this, they're bound to have bad music. Yes, I've made fun of group names before, and I don't see why it is wrong to do so. If a group's name is funny sounding or just unpronounceable, I tend to usually laugh it off, like in the case of T1419 and Kepler, although I've kind of accepted the latter. But when you equate and eventually prejudice a group's music because of their group name, that's when it starts to get messy. Yes, they might have had a hard time coming up with a feasible group name, which eventually led them to end up choosing their current one, but that in no way equates to their music, and it's very odd of a fan to quote-unquote not check them out or listen to their music because they have a weird group name, as I've heard stans say. It feeds into the toxic negativity that K-pop stans harbor, usually inflicting this negativity onto communities with other stans. But it was number 1 on insert K streaming platform, and that means it was a good song. I don't know if I have to reiterate all over again that chart ranks and streams don't equate to a song being a good one. It essentially all depends on the fan base, popularity, and the amount of power an entertainment company holds on the majority of the audience. Take BTS's English trilogy for example. None of the songs are actually objectively good or have any special appeal. But when this song reached the Western general public and charted for literal weeks after release, suddenly it's claimed to be the best song in K-pop? And that's the thing with songs that chart. They're always played too safe, too mediocre, well salted but doesn't have that dash of chili pepper that actually molds the taste of a song. No adventurous melodies or daring chords, and people tend to Stockholm Syndrome themselves to like it and call it a good song. Y'all weird and basic for only listening to title tracks. I chuckled heartily while scripting this. I had such a good laugh. Okay, fine, so people who listen to title tracks exclusively are weird and basic, but listening to everything but title tracks doesn't make you as unique and quirky as you think you are. Title tracks are the fundamentals of a group's sound and their concept because of the existence of music videos. There's a reason a song in every album is chosen and cherry-picked to be the title track of the album, even if I don't usually agree. Although I don't condone people talking about a group's so-called soundscape without listening to any of their B-sides, the opposite cannot be true either. This is an emulation of peak hypocrisy within K-pop stans and is one reason I do not like the fandom. What about your Nugu flops? Saved the best for last, didn't I? I would question your online presence if you didn't hear this being said by a fan on Twitter or on Reddit at least once. I haven't been in a lot of fan wars, but the ones that I happened to have gotten dragged into, it was literally only stans of big three groups and just bigger groups in general that dragged my music taste for the sake of the fan war. Need I remind you of how childish, immature, and plain rude this sounds? Y'all will literally go as far as to call someone's faves Nugu flops for what, a mere feeling of superiority? Just literally grow up, I'm tired. Anyways, I know this was kinda long, but that's it for the video. As you probably concluded from the video, I have a lot of problems with things that K-pop stans say. I hope you enjoyed. Do let me know what you think about the points I mentioned in the comments. This is Aloka signing out for the day and potentially the week.